What is up YouTube, and welcome to this Wandavision episode 4 breakdown, Easter eggs and review. This was easily the best episode yet, if just for the opener, which gave me absolute chills. There will be spoilers on this video, so please do be warned. And we open with a chilling cold open as we see Monica Rambeau coming back from the snap and reassembling in her mother's hospital room. It is insane to think that in just a few minutes, Tony Stark will die and the epic battle is about to take place on Earth. I love this more measured and serious return of people who were snapped, which we first properly got to see in Far From Home, and while that had a more comical take, here Monica was waiting for her mother's surgery, but she returns to a hospital with others in absolute chaos. A real opposite to Bruce, his very optimistic, joyful words when he said that they did it. It's one hell of a way to show the true modern day Monica and set the tone for the entire episode. It's been 5 years and everyone thought that Monica was dead, and sadly her mother Maria Rambeau did succumb to her cancer during the time between Infinity War and Endgame. I have to wonder if it was a cause of radiation, possibly due to S.W.O.R.D missions, or possibly the radiation that was mentioned later in the episode. I'm gutted that Maria did pass, as it does feel like a real missed opportunity. I think having her be the director would just be superb, but I guess a S.W.O.R.D series would be the perfect option there. We cut to S.W.O.R.D HQ, which looks very, very much like a NASA base there where Monica works, or at least, well, she used to work, and can't get through the door and is disrespected by the security agent, who must have got a job there post-Blip. I guess there was an intense demand for jobs that Blipped people used to do. I mean, is it like maternity leave where you just walk back into your job after having a kid? There's really a lot to unpack there. However, she's introduced to the Guard as Captain Monica Rambeau. Of course, that's an official title there, because I'm guessing she followed in her mother's footsteps of being a flying ace. And it's also a reference to her first appearance and run in the comics as being Captain Marvel. Yes, she was Captain Marvel way before Carol Danvers, which is pretty darn funny to think about. The man is Director Tyler Hayward, and as they walk she notices a nice portrait of her mother with the call sign Photon, a name that Monica also used some point in the comics after Marvel, the original Captain's offspring, grew up. She was the first S.W.O.R.D agent to report for duty after the Blip, and they've lost half of their astronauts, and it seems like they were going into space and doing space missions, and they've moved more into drones and robotics. It seems S.W.O.R.D was originally Sentient Weapon Creation, before being named Sentient Weapon Observation and Response. Of course, that was Sentient Worlds in the comics, which is pretty cool there, and I do wonder if we will see Nick Fury on that S.W.O.R.D base. It's a curious one, but the fact that the Skrulls were considered as a possible threat of the cause of the Westview bubble makes me think maybe they're not on side as much as we thought, which is really, really weird. Now, it does seem like S.W.O.R.D was actually set up after Captain Marvel happened, and it does also seem like it has run concurrently with S.H.I.E.L.D. and really the entire MCU. It's a bit of a surprise that S.W.O.R.D has existed this long without it really being referenced that heavily within the MCU main movies, and I do like that idea, and after watching Captain Marvel quite recently, I do think that we will have Nick Fury over on that spaceship that we had in the Captain Marvel movie, which is really, really cool nonetheless, but it's interesting that it has existed, obviously, since the 90s. Hayward says how space is full of unexpected threats. I mean, yes, you really can understate that there, considering that Thanos came from space and wiped out half of all life in the universe. But Monica retorts saying it was always full of threats, but also allies. Of course, we know the Skrulls are the good guys, and on Earth's side, which, well, yeah, I expect a heel turn from them in the near future. Monica should be, or at least had a say in the new director of S.W.O.R.D, but as S.W.O.R.D was her home and things like that, but as her mother died and Monica was snapped, well, Hayward took over as director. The FBI have now requested help from S.W.O.R.D in a missing persons case, and Monica is tasked to this job of taking an imaging drone to Westview as she's been grounded. This was part of her mother's protocol set up in case the snapped returned, and it's nice to think that her mother did always think that she would return. Now she heads off to New Jersey and finds Randall Park's Jimmy Woo, the man we last saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and he is beyond perfect for this because, of course, Randall Park is in Fresh Off the Boat, which is one of my favourite sitcoms on TV, and it is just one of my favourite shows, which my household, we are obsessed with that show, and he really does show off his sitcom chops here. Now, he has seen some weird stuff as well, I presume, during his time with S.H.I.E.L.D., and I loved how he finally learned the card trick that Ant-Man did in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's in Westview as a person in witness protection has gone missing, and the weird thing is that none of the witness's close associates know this witness, and the cops say that Westview doesn't exist and never did, as they do their best North Haverbrook impression, and they live in Eastview. So it seems like people are being affected outside the bubble, but more in that a bit, because it seems like the bubble does affect things on the outside, even if you go in. None of the residents inside can be reached by phone, and it's just insane that the town is actually missing. They send in the imaging drone, and we see partly of the barrier inside, as Jimmy says he had posters of Elliot Ness as a kid, the man who tried to bring down Al Capone, and the drone goes missing. The drone itself has some special colours, as it's the same as Carol Danvers' colour scheme, the one chosen by Maria in the movie. Later we would learn it is the drone that Wanda found in her front garden, and she gets sucked into the force field. Now 24 hours later, Dr. Darcy Lewis, yes, Doctor, is brought in with other experts in their field, and they're not supposed to talk to each other, and Kat is just perfect here as Darcy again. I'm so glad that Marvel actually remembered that she exists as a character as she arrives at the S.W.O.R.D base just outside of town. She's come far from her political science degree and interning for Eric and being Jane's assistant to getting an astrophysics degree. I guess she changed majors there after the whole Thor experience. We stand hard. Drones are being sent in constantly as she heads into her workstation, and it seems no one has a clue what this energy is at all. She works out that it is CMBR energy, cosmic microwave background radiation, and it's heavy in the area, and it seems to be safe, but just for now. It's energy left over from the Big Bang, and yes, that is actually a real thing. However, could this indeed be the radiation that will create mutants? Maybe. It also makes sense that the Big Bang energy is here, as the Infinity Stones, as we learned from the Collector in Guardians of the Galaxy, were created before or at all of creation. Yes, a nice callback to one of my favourite scenes in the MCU. I expect Wanda's powers have increased heavily as the Mind Stone was actually exploded in front of her, and while Thanos turned back time, maybe the exposure to the raw energy didn't reverse and Wanda is now at her comics level power. The energy is probably a byproduct of her powers, and if everyone is dead and Monica survived, like we saw, this could be how she actually got her powers. We know that the Mind Stone was used to give Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch their powers, and they got very different powers. So, if exposure to this gives you powers, then yes, this could be how mutants actually get created, as you get different powers. Oh my god, I think that could happen, but I am going to contain myself from that theory because it is an absolute wild one. He manages to pick up a broadcast signal inside this and picks up episode 1 of the sitcom. It seems it can only be picked up on old TVs, specifically old cathode ray tube sets, not the flat screens we know and love today. And boy, I do not miss those TV sets, having to wait for them to heat up and turn on as the beekeeper heads into town via the sewers. That is Agent Franklin. Jimmy seems incredulous that more agents are being sent in. I expect Hayward will stop being the director by the end, and they look at the situation table, and yes, there are more hexagons. Yes, hexagons 6666. Mephisto and the devil is the lead theory. However, I'm going to go into things a bit different later on. But they can't pick up anything. However, Darcy is watching the sitcoms. I loved the scene where the whole group are watching the sitcoms as she says, "It's been a crazy few years, but Vision is dead, not just blipped." And Jimmy Woo says, "The universe just created a sitcom with 2 Avengers." Yes, he's like us and acknowledges the craziness of this show even existing in the first place. I think the writers there were having some real self-existential crisis while writing that. Darcy is invested and she even says when the 2 leads kiss. This was the scene of the TV at the end of episode 1. Jimmy says they need to ID everyone in the Westview bubble, which they do, starting with Vision and Wanda, and then with Mr. and Mrs. Hart, played by Sharon and Todd Davis. It seems the people in the bubble have proper names, but in the show they have character names. Now he even has his own whiteboard and has a list of suspects starting with the scrolls in brackets after extraterrestrials. Even Jimmy Woo is questioning why all the hexagons, and he also adds Vision is alive too. This is very much a Reddit thread come alive. And now that's very, very cool. And I have to wonder if they're kind of being a bit pokey funny at all the Marvel YouTube channels like mine, New Media Rockstars and Heavy Spoilers. They have most people ID'd except Agnes. Now Dottie isn't there as well, which is weird, and I do wonder if it's because they haven't got to her yet when that board was shown. However, we had the girl who led the meeting in episode 2, so it could be curious and it could be hinting that maybe she is Clea, Doctor Strange's lover. Maybe. Wild theory there. Let's just calm it down at the moment as they notice our girl Monica finally, but they acknowledge she's acting very differently. They come up with the idea to contact Wanda via the radio, and I laughed how Darcy is grossed out by the gender roles of Wanda washing the dishes once an episode. They find the drone in the episode as it's in colour and it's been switched to Scarlet Witch's colours. Jimmy finally reaches Wanda, but it's like the glitch in episode 2 as it's censored. What we saw of the cut of Dottie's hand is not there, and the broadcast is only the actual sitcom. The beekeeper is also made from Agent Franklin as he heads through the barrier and his cable changes to something more cheery, and it seems like people and things do change to fit this reality, and it changes on the outside. The back and forth between Darcy and Woo is pure gold as they watch Wanda give birth to twins, and she says, "What a twist." It's just too good. They hear the word Ultron and it becomes different as it cuts out the grilling Monica got from Wanda, and the aspect ratio changes, which I will never get tired of. Wanda says to Monica, "You're a trespasser and you're an outsider." It looks like Wanda made this reality herself, but it's starting to fall apart and fixes the wall as Vision comes in, except he has the grey dead look with his ripped out Mind Stone. It could be that she is reanimating Vision's corpse, which means she's reanimating the whole town and everyone is actually dead. Personally, I'm not really a fan of that idea if it did happen, but it does look like it might happen. He says they can leave and go anywhere they want, which did remind me of that scene in Infinity War when the pair have their tender moment in Scotland. But she says this is their home and they're not leaving. They finally made her a true threat and put some respect on her name as they sit down to watch TV and Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix plays. Is that a hint from Doctor Strange 2? Now, Brother Voodoo is hinted to be used in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, interestingly, it is a fit, and these shows and movies do come together, as Wandavision will go directly into the Multiverse of Madness. And this character would be a curious addition, but I don't know if they would include this character. I may break that out into another video tomorrow, and considering we've had hints of everything that's going to go down in the next episode of the Throwdown, it might be a very interesting one. And I do know that, of course, Doctor Strange may be involved, and I think that this show will end leading directly into the Multiverse of Madness, just like House of M, where Doctor Strange came in to intervene with Wanda and spoke to her while she was with her children. I really do like that idea, and again, this is all speculation. And I'm a bit gutted we didn't get to see the 80s episode, but that is next week. And, well, I think that maybe, just maybe, Vision has reverted to his base programming post Mind Stone explosion. We know Shuri was working on him to try and get that Mind Stone out and let him be a real boy, so to speak. So maybe some of that did happen, but the idea that she's just reanimating all dead people in this whole town is an absolutely harrowing thought. But that's it for this video, so please do drop a like down below if you enjoyed it. Please do subscribe with notifications on, and let me know what you thought of it in the comments. And check out our Discord, as we've got a whole channel dedicated to WandaVision. And let me know what theories and videos you want me to make on WandaVision, because I am all in on this bad boy. I will see you soon, and goodbye.